guys, and welcome back to my channel. As you can see right here, I have something really nice prepared already for you guys because I felt like I want to do something a bit more elegantly, and I don't know why, but on Sunday I felt the need to make a corset. So I went ahead and designed a dress that has that said corset bodice, and we're gonna make that together today. Not the corset, but the dress that I had in mind afterwards, that you can see prepared already here. But this pattern works perfectly fine as a corset pattern as well, as I already made mine, put it on, and it looks really neat. So I'm gonna show you in the very end as well what the corset looks like, so that you know, see both versions. So same pattern, two different things, and I'm super excited to show you how to make a really beautiful, elegant dress out of this. So this is gonna be a midi dress. We're gonna have a skirt that is 1 meter long, so for me it goes around the middle of my calves. So obviously that is totally up to you how long you want to make this dress. You can elongate it or shorten it however you like. I am 168 centimeters tall, so for reference. Oh yeah, another thing, I kind of filmed a little bit about the making of the corset. It was like more of a private sew, I guess. I haven't had that one in a long time. I just, you know, did a small reel kind of thing for the corset. If you wanna see that, go ahead and give me a follow on my Instagram because I will upload it there, so don't miss out on it. And let's just jump right into it. So this pattern is fairly straightforward. We have the bodice, which is laid out right here in front of you, which has this cup hood, as I like to call it, because it kind of is a hood for the cups. Then we have this front lower bodice part, and then we have one whole back, which also incorporates this short length of the cup hood. So the first thing that we need to do is sew these three pieces together, then add the cup hood, and then we can close the side seams right here and continue from there. I prepared my pattern pieces so that I have a very sturdy bodice. That was the goal that I was going for. I have a beautiful, stunning jacquard that I found. This is just absolutely amazing. As you can see right here, it has like these flower details on it and is this beautiful pine tree green in the background. So amazing, I totally love that. I added interfacing to my bodice pieces and an interlining, which also has interfacing ironed onto it. So this is sturdy. I don't think that I will be adding boning. You can do that to make it even more structured if you want to. And I also went ahead and overlocked my edges because this is jacquard, and jacquard just tends to fray a lot. That is not necessary if you have any other fabric that does not fray, because we're going to line this dress. So to start with, we're going to put right sides of our front piece and our side front pieces together. And what I found for me works best if I have my center front bodice piece on the bottom of my machine facing upwards and my side front pieces facing down, because I can maneuver the curve easier together with this rather straight piece of the side front. So that's just something that I wanted to quickly tell you. So let's sew this. Now to iron that, I like to use my tailor's ham, as I am going to iron this open and the bust area is rounded, as you can see right here. So I can just put this on top here, open the seam allowance up, and then just iron it open. And the rest I can do just on a flat surface. Since this is a rather thick fabric, now because we have so many layers, I want to clip this so that it lays nicer once it's in position. Because at the moment, if I do this, you can see how it bubbles up. And once you clip like these kind of corners in there, it just lays next to each other, like the seam allowance. So I'm just gonna do that every so often. And you can see the waist seam. The waistline is right here, where the curve goes from curving out to curving in. You can see that right here is like this twisting point. So that's where I clipped into, because otherwise the seam allowance here won't lay flat, because this just has tension on it. As you can see, it opens up like that. So that prevents it. And now I wanna re-iron. And I keep this in the shape until it cools down. You can use like a wooden tool to help it keep the shape basically, because then it really, really stays however you ironed it. Like this. This looks really, really nice. And we can continue now and put the cup hood right sides on here. You should find notches for the front dividing seam and obviously match up the center front and the side seam edges. Okay, and this is what it looks like. It's already shaping really nicely. Before we iron, this here is like a super thick seam in the front dividing seam. So I'm just gonna go ahead and only at that part, I'm going to cut down the seam allowance like that, because it's just easier to iron and it's not bulky. And now I want to iron this open. Usually I would iron the cup hood seam upwards so that I can show you quickly. If I iron the seam upwards, this is how it lays. So you're not directly looking into the ditch of the seam because it faces down. If I were to lay my seam allowances down, you know, it's completely the opposite and you would look straight into the ditch of the seam. So that's what you want to avoid. Therefore, usually I would iron it upwards. Since this fabric is now super thick, we're going to iron it open to avoid any bulk. It always depends on the project and on the fabric you're working with, and then you apply the rules however you see fit. Okay, with the front now completely done, we can go ahead and add the back pieces, and they're pretty straightforward. You just close the side seam by putting right sides together, and that's it. Okay, let's iron this open. I'm going to do the same technique with cutting the seam allowance down here at the hood seam, just to avoid any bulk. I need a new pair of scissors. Mine are not really working anymore. Usually you would iron this towards the back. Same reason, since it's such a thick material now, we're gonna open it up just to avoid any bulk. And this wooden tool is just to make the seams stay nice and open after ironing. It's super handy. And that's the bodice already completely done. Obviously you can add top stitches however you like. I felt like this fabric just does it all. You don't need any top stitches for this. Obviously you can fix the seam allowances in place with top stitches, or if you want to add boning, you're gonna have some top stitches somewhere. That's your decision, whatever you like best and fits your project best. But we can continue now with the skirt. Okay, I have my skirt here. As you can see, it's quite a large skirt. Mine measures a bit over 140 centimeters in the hem. Depending on your size that you are making, it's more or less. To make it less difficult, we're gonna iron the hem facing upwards into the skirt already, because then we have a fold line that we can refer to once, you know, we close everything up and have a continuous hem that we don't have to iron in anymore, basically. So I'm just gonna do that for the whole length of the skirt hem. So just like that, let's just let it cool down. As you can see right here, I will be doing pockets. These will lay on the inside of a fold, so nothing of that will be visible. For my pattern piece, I actually made a front and a back pattern piece separately because I have a fabric that is wider than standard width. Mine is 160 centimeters wide. Standard width, at least here in Europe, is 140 centimeters. And the skirt for everything larger than size XS, so basically all the sizes, have a wider skirt pattern than 140 centimeters. So that's why I just divided it into front and back pieces. If you have a wider fabric, you can just put these together at the side seam and have like these pockets like this. If you have a seam right here, it's actually quite a bit easier to put the pockets in, because this would be the seam line right here. So you'd have a seam allowance here. You can go ahead and just put your pocket right sides together on the front and the back pieces, and then close the side seam in one go around the pocket. Basically, that's all you have to do. For me, in my case here, since I don't have a side seam, I'm going to do the pocket that I did for my dinner dress as well, actually. So that's what this is all about. I just wanted to quickly explain that that because your pattern might differ from what you see on screen right here. And this is what the finished pocket looks like. We can go ahead and now put all the pleats in that we want. So as I said before, all the pleats go towards the side seam, so also back and front pleats. Let me just turn this over. So I have my first pleat start right here. So I'm gonna grab this needle and fold it onto the other needle right here. And now I want to press this fold in place. Now this next one goes over the pocket towards the next needle, which is right here. And now I also want to align the top right here, that everything is like one continuous line and no edges and no bumps and nothing. The two last folds in the back, and they also go towards the side seams, so we do it like the opposite way now. This one meets right here at the front fold, and the last one goes to this needle right here. And while ironing these folds, I'm trying my best to get parallel folds, because I want everything to look neat and tidy, obviously. And with that, the skirt is pleated. And I will fix everything in place, but before I do that, I am measuring if all of this fits together with my bodice, because if not, I have to adjust the folds. There is always a bit of a mismatch with folds that are calculated, so just with the math on the pattern, this should fit together, but since you're working with fabric, it can always like be a bit more or a bit less. So always check before you sew anything in place if it actually fits on wherever you want to fit it on. So that's what I will be doing too, and then if need be, adjust. So as you can see here, this should fit together. Like, I think I can just ease it together under the sewing machine. There should be no issue at all. It is not perfectly the same length. As you can see, like there is like 1 centimeter more in the skirt, which I don't really care about. Like, I'm just going to either shove it into a fold if I need to, or, you know, make do under the sewing machine. So this is fine. Just check and adjust if needed. Okay, with that out of the way, we can continue and put the bodice onto the skirt. So I'm just gonna match up the center front line and then the center back and just pin the waistline together. And with that, I can go ahead and close the waist seam. Okay, this is what it looks like. Pretty pleased with how this turned out. So what I will be doing now is to just iron the seam allowance into the skirt as it already wants to lay. And I think we can put this outer layer aside for now and work on the lining. Basically, the lining is the same. I will just, instead of pleating the waistline for the skirt, just gather it, as nobody's gonna see it and I don't need the hassle that is pleating this. Yeah, I'll be back once the lining is in place and we can finish this dress. Okay, I am now done with the lining. I forgot to mention that the lining pieces look a tiny bit different than the outer layer pieces, because I try to like merge them together as good as possible so you have less seams in the lining basically. That's why you have like this large side front and back bodice piece, which is this right here, and you have this front piece right here that also has the cup hood already merged into it, same as here, and you just have to close this teeny tiny dart right there, which I did here. As you can see, I ironed it upwards and then just closed the front dividing seams, and that's already it for the bodice, the lining bodice. And then for the skirt, I just gathered it to size. For the skirt, a selvage to selvage piece is more than enough. I made mine 75 centimeters and just did a small hem right here with my hem foot. This is 5 millimeters folded twice and then top stitched. And this is all that I did for the lining. So nothing too crazy, nothing too special, just a usual manufacturing for a lining. And now we can put these two pieces together for the straps, because I don't want this dress to be strapless. I just want to have something up here, as it is a very tightly fitted garment on top with a lot of cleavage, I guess. So I want to have something here, right? And I thought the best thing to do would be a satin band that is sewn into the neckline in the front and in the back, so you can tie a bow tie up here on the shoulder. I think that's gonna look super, super elegantly. So that's what I will be doing. And this will get sandwiched in the front and the back while the lining gets sewn on top. So we're gonna address that in just a second. I think just to have enough to tie and, you know, for it to also look nice, I'm going to go with around 50 centimeters, I think. So like this is going to sit somewhere here, reaches up until here, and then from there we need something to tie. So well, this is more than 50 centimeters, probably about 70 or 80 centimeters. So I'm gonna cut off 4 pieces that measure this length. I'm going to try it on once everything is done, then I can shorten this still if it's too long. Okay, and with these prepped, we can go ahead and merge lining and outer layer together. Okay, I marked where my satin bands are gonna go with these pins right there. I'm just gonna put right sides together on top here and then just pin it in place. It doesn't match the color of the background fabric perfectly, but I think I'm fine with that. I was happy enough that I found a green satin band, because it's not like at Joann's or whatever. Like, we don't have stores like that. Not really in my area, at least. You don't have that big of an inventory, I guess, for the stores there, so you are happy with what you can get. So with that in place here, I'm going to just put right sides of my lining right on top here, and I'm just gonna close the neckline for now, because we're gonna work on the zipper with the lining in place already. At least that's how I like to do it. I read a few comments of people who said, like, I learned sewing back in the days as well. This is how I learned how to do it. Whatever I am doing is not the only way of doing stuff. Like, there are many ways to sew and many different techniques. So whatever I'm telling you works for me and has worked for me for years now. But if you learn something else, or if you're just more comfortable with another technique that I'm not per se showing, you can do that. Like, it's not wrong, you know? Whatever I'm showing you is just whatever I like best. So there is the option to close the center back seam until the zipper notch first before you put lining in, and then also put the zipper in before you put lining in. That's totally doable. I just don't like it. So like this, and now I can sew from this to this edge. So like from center back over everywhere here in the front to the other center back. Okay, the lining is in place. I understitched the seam as well, as you can see here. And now I'm going to iron the neckline so that the ditch of the seam is only visible on the facing side. You know the drill by now, I'm sure. Okay, and now we can go ahead and put the zipper in. I have a 45 centimeter long zipper. In the pattern, you're gonna find a zipper notch. Okay, by now I think you know the drill, how to put a zipper in. Let's open it up, find the plastic stopper and the point where the zipper actually stops, and that point gets matched up with the fold line in your dress. Let's pin this in place, and without stretching anything, if anything you want to stretch the zipper a tiny bit, but only if it is like an elastic fabric. Typically you don't want to stretch anything to get the neatest result. You pin the zipper down to your zipper notch. And now we're gonna go ahead and sew the zipper side with an inseam zipper foot in. Let's copy the placement of specific things like the dividing seam or the top and the zipper notch using needles onto the other side of the zipper. And now when we open this back up, we have like these markers that we can use to put the other side perfectly onto the zipper. And we can go ahead and close the other zipper side. Okay, the zipper is in, and what we're going to do now is to put the lining on top there. So we have the right side of our dress where the lining just continues, and we just want to fold the lining down onto the zipper, matching up the waist seam. And up here we want to make sure that we fold the zipper band out of the way so that we can fold the lining right on top and pin it in place. And we're then just going to pin all the way down to the zipper notch, which should match up with the one in our outer fabric, as you can see right here. And now we can close from the neckline down here all the way to the zipper notch and stop right there. I'm gonna use a one-sided foot as it's the easiest with the zipper teeth laying underneath basically. And before we flip this right sides out, we're going to cut away the upper edge right here in the center back neckline so that everything just lays nicer. And now we can go ahead and flip this whole thing like that. And I just like to press it now to just flatten everything out. And then I'm gonna close the center back seam of both separately. Okay. And the last thing, plus the hem. I always forget the hem. I always say the last thing, and then you still have to do the hem. So the second to last thing that we have to do now is to match up the center back seam. And I'm gonna start from the hem so that that is all even and stuff, and just pin this together, and then work my way up to where the zipper starts. You probably won't be able to sew all the way towards the zipper, which is totally fine. Just go as closely as you can. If there is like 1 to 1.5 centimeters of a hole, that's fine. We can just work with that while ironing and it's just gonna disappear. It's not really that big of a deal. Just make sure that your stitching line basically continues on into the stitching line of where you put the zipper in. Even if there is a gap between the start of the center back and the zipper seam, this should still be on like the same stitching line basically. And for the hem of the lining, we're gonna do the same thing and also try to stitch as closely to the zipper seam as possible. And now we can close each of the skirts separately. Let's iron the seam allowance open for both the lining and the outer fabric. And this is what it looks like from the outside. You can not really tell that there is a zipper in place at all, so that's really, really good. And if anything, the pattern does the last bits. And now we can decide what we want to do for the hem of this dress. I already ironed the hem upwards, so I think I'm just gonna hem tape it in place. I think that's the neatest solution. You can decide whatever you want to do for your dress. You can like do a double fold, 2 centimeters, something like that, and top stitch, or you can just top stitch here at 4 centimeters. You can do a blind stitch, you can do hem tape, whatever you feel like. Honestly, there is no real rule. And with that, the dress is done and we're already finished. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out my social media, especially on my Instagram, where I will be showing you the corset a bit more in detail, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more. And all of the other social media that I have are linked in the description down below. The handle is exactly the same as here on my YouTube. Talking about YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post every Sunday, so you can keep an eye out for that. And if you're interested in the pattern, there will be a direct link in the description of this video, and if I don't forget it, in the pinned comment as well. So go ahead and follow that link. You'll be directed to my Etsy shop, where you can find plenty of different sewing patterns that I all have a video on here on my channel as well. So that's the most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming. So thank you so much. And also, I have a channel membership now. That's just something where you can directly support me with a monthly subscription fee. I only have the channel membership since like less than a week, so thank you so much to my first channel member. That is Madeline Grudens. So thank you so much for supporting me in that way. Of course, that's not a must if you don't want to or can't afford it. I obviously don't ask you to. The best way to support this channel is also just to hit like and leave a comment. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!